talk about Argentina, though, because they avoided statistically what would be the biggest upset in World Cup history, didn't they, Jimmy? But what do you think this Cabo Verde side exposed in this Argentina team yesterday?
Some relaxation, I would say. Like, they went up 1-0, and it felt like a lot of the narrative, too, was, well, once Cabo Verde gives up a goal, that's it. Argentina's going to turn it into 1, 2, 3, 4. And it just didn't happen that way. And it actually reminded me of their first opening game against Saudi Arabia in 2022 in Qatar, where they went up 1-0 and they thought it was pretty much done. Saudi Arabia comes back and scores 2 stunners, and they end up losing that one. And they didn't really necessarily make those same mistakes until they got to the Netherlands. So they play the Dutch in the knockout rounds. They're up 2-0, and they let that game kind of slip. And then you get to the final. They end up winning that one in penalties, obviously. And then they get to the final, and they're up 2-0 on France. Then they go up 3-2, and they gave up both of those leads, have to win it again in pens. So there's something about this team where they just relax. And I guess I can understand it against Cabo Verde as opposed to knockout rounds against Netherlands and France. But there is a little bit of a history there where they'll take their foot off the pedal and just allow teams back into it.
There's such a difference right now between Messi, who is rewriting the history books every time he plays. Because now he passed Miroslav Klose. He's all on his own. He's at 20 World Cup goals, more than anyone in history. Lautaro Martinez, not consistent enough, not good enough. Thiago Almada. There's such a step down from anyone not named Messi in the attack. It cannot be that this guy, who I think has scored down 8 consecutive games for Argentina, that they're just relying on someone who's close to turning 40. Yes, he's the greatest of all time, in my opinion, but he's about to turn 40. And you're relying on him every single day, playing in these conditions where the feels like was way over 90 in Miami. Like, how can this continue for Argentina? I think they're already looking ahead at Egypt. I think that they played down to the opposition. They looked at this team, Cape Verde, and said, oh, well, we're the world champion. This fairy tale now, it's going to come to an end. They had no idea how they were going to get pushed, how this team was going to run at them.
I think that what's creeping into Argentina's performances, and I've noticed it a number of times throughout the competition, is there's an element of arrogance and complacency. And I don't use that lightly. I feel the arrogance in terms of that they almost deserve to be in the final. I feel like the complacency comes because if you look at all of the teams in terms of what their designated routes are to get to the final, Argentina needs to be open and honest and say they probably, on paper, have the easiest route. And I feel like there's an almost like a, oh no, we're definitely going to go back to back. And I remember Nico alluding to it in terms of the internal confidence, in terms of why, yeah, we should just be there. We should just turn around and showcase what we can do. We should be able to go back to back. Going back to back in the World Cup is arguably the hardest thing to do in sports. Repeating anything is the hardest thing to do in sports. Regardless of your lineage and your direction and where else you're going, everybody is going to be hunting you. You're going to get 10 times out of 10 in terms of effort, tenacity, and obviously, of course, game plan anytime you play against the defending champions. If they don't take this lesson, they will learn very, very quickly that they are not going to go as far as they think they are, and their over-reliance on Messi is becoming very obvious to the world.
Jaydee, are you worried that there could be an aspect of tiredness that will creep in? Because Scaloni did say yesterday, we've got now 3 days to rest instead of 6. When they rely on Messi so heavily, who is nearly 40 years of age, would that creep in? Is that something you would get worried about with this Argentina side?
Boo-hoo, sounds like excuses. Everybody's got the same thing. Everybody's got the same schedule.
But when you're relying on a player who's 40 years of age and he's your guy.
Did he play in the last game? He didn't play in the last game. Did he play in the last game?
He just played 120 minutes.
Oh, okay. So they brought him in towards the end. Why is that? To rest him. And I understand that. He's almost 40 years old. You want to manage those minutes, and I can recognise it. But at the end of the day, if I list and go through that squad, you just showed me the value, 920 million. 920 million? And you're sitting there talking to me about how you feel tired? I don't really understand. I don't even think fatigue should be at this stage of a competition. If you can't get yourself physically prepared, mentally prepared, and emotionally prepared for the World Cup at this stage, then you shouldn't be in the squad.
Would you say yesterday Cabo Verde looked more up for it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
For the whole game, they were up for it. There was never a moment where I thought they're not up for it or not ready to compete. Whereas Argentina, again, they just took their foot off the gas. They scored that first goal. What a goal by Messi, by the way. Gets himself in, and they relaxed. And they have a tendency of going, relax, oh, we got to score again. They just scored. I mean, it's just, they're that good, though, fortunately, where they can just turn it on and hit the switch and score and do what they have to do. I think what's interesting for me about Argentina is the lack of Angel Di Maria, who gave them a bit of more of a counter-attacking threat. They don't really have the same type of speed that can counter the movement of Leo Messi. Leo's going to go find pockets, right? He's going to go find pockets. Sometimes it's in behind, but right now, at his age, he looks to kind of get it in front of the back line and then make his decisions from there. Who's going to be that dynamic threat? For me, they got a lot of players that like to come inside, create numerical overloads in the middle of the field, and then they try to play and build from there. It's just not very dynamic, and at some point, they're going to get caught, to your point. They're going to run into a team that's going to catch them, and then what? Because they just don't, for me, don't have the horses to kind of really run and get after it. Talented players, of course, but just a different style.
Talking about Messi, though, breaking records every game, I feel like, at this point, scoring now 20 goals in World Cup history, Matteo. Would it be silly to say that if Argentina won back-to-back World Cups, he could be in contention for the Ballon d'Or?
Absolutely. I mean, if you win your second World Cup, which hasn't been done in, I think, half a century now since Brazil last did it, what was it, in the
58 and 62.
Exactly. If you achieve that, forget the domestic side, what you're doing with Inter Miami. You're doing the greatest feat. The reason why, before Messi in 2022, the reason why Argentinians were like, oh, but we can't touch Diego Maradona, it's because Diego Maradona won the World Cup. Now Messi has that. Imagine if he has two. He was already immortal, I think, because of what he did for the club side in Barcelona and winning all those Champions League, winning all those Ballon d'Ors. If he has 2 World Cups, to me, he's a shoo-in for the Ballon d'Or. If you don't win the Ballon d'Or for leading your club to a second World Cup in a row, then what else is it going to take?
You can't win MLS Cup. You can't win the Ballon d'Or, baby.
More U.S. Open.
I just think what you're seeing from Leo Messi is unprecedented. I put it in the same echelons, and I actually said before the greatest feat I've ever seen in sports was Serena Williams winning a Grand Slam pregnant, because technically Olympia's a Grand Slam champion, and that's her child, and I never thought I'd ever see something like that. Imagine carrying a child and beating people in the middle of competition that are trying to beat you. But if Leo Messi at 39 years old wins a World Cup and is definitively the best player in that tournament, this might be one of the greatest things you've ever seen in sports. And then, to be honest, the question mark will then be, so what, can we do this again? Can we do this again in 4 years? Because he doesn't look like he's missing a beat. Regardless of if he's walking, he's carrying as many miles and running around as much as we expect, the greatness when he does have the ball I honestly, I've never seen anything. And I kind of run out of superlatives when I think about him, and it just makes me excited to think to myself, we could actually see this again, Jimmy, in 4 years.
We could. I think what's interesting about Messi is he looked like he's playing as free as he's ever played. He had the burden of, hey, I haven't won anything of consequence for so long. And then he wins a Copa America, he wins a World Cup, he wins a Copa America again. He's playing with house money, and I feel like he's really enjoying it, and probably knowing that this is most likely his last ride. And so I think that has allowed him to just maybe take this tournament in a way that he hadn't before, especially in 2022 in the last World Cup, where you could just feel the weight of, it's kind of now or never. If I don't win this thing, I'll never be considered the greatest, at least in his own country, because they still, I think, Diego Maradona is #1 for a lot of Argentinians.
Yeah. So Argentina versus Egypt next Tuesday, Matteo. Do you think Egypt have taken something from that Cape Verde display?
No.
No?
I think Argentina is going to have an easier time, and this is to take nothing away from Egypt, but I think that with Cape Verde, I think the overriding story there is that Argentina was looking already beyond them. I don't think you can do that now in the round of 16 against Egypt. I think they obviously know who Mohamed Salah is. They know who Marmoush is. They're gonna raise their level collectively. I think they won't be pushed as much, and Argentina will go through.